I think adding finger holes to cutting boards just is a nice touch, and it's a super easy thing to do. I'll show you here in two shakes. I start with a hole saw. I've got an 1.25 inch hole saw that just leaves a nice, I would say, comfortable size hole to be able to pick cutting boards up by something you can stick your finger in, and or some people will have a peg or something, or several pegs or hooks, and it's nice to be able to hook and hang a cutting board by some kind of a hole. What I find with a hole saw as opposed to like a Forstner bit is I just tend to get a clean cut, and I don't get any blowout because I cut right into a backing piece, and so I tend to get a very clean 1.25 inch circle this way. And then all there is really left to the whole entire cutting board, including this circle, is a 1/8 inch round over bit. And so here I am with a router with a 1/8 inch round over bit, and if I just go through that in a clockwise motion, I get a great softened edge. Once you've sanded the board and sanded inside that hole, and then run this 1/8 inch round over around the perimeter of the board, you get a very soft board to handle. Feels very good in your hands, and the finger hole also feels really good. It's just very smooth on your finger. It makes the board easier to pick up, makes the board easier to hang, just makes the board look more finished, and the whole process takes a matter of minutes or less than minutes. I mean, a super small handful of minutes to just run that round over bit around the edges. Once I've done that, just to show you the rest of this board, I simply sanded it. These boards are hickory, by the way, hickory glue-ups. I simply sanded them. I sanded them to 400 grit to just get a kind of a glassy, smooth wooden finish. Sanded the flat surfaces, sanded the edges, sanded maybe extra long on the end grain, even though 400 grit, relatively new 400 grit paper, tended to just bring this down to a very smooth surface super quickly. Just a few passes with a vibrating sander. So I did the flat surfaces, did the edges to my liking. I did find that the long edges, there were some slight saw marks from my table saw, so just with a few passes of a very light cut with a plane, you could plane those saw cut marks off of the long grain edges just to make for a smoother finish. Finish them with this homemade cutting board balm that I made, which is just nothing but food grade mineral oil and beeswax, natural beeswax. I did a 3-to-1 mix. You could probably do 2-to-1. The idea is the oil kind of draws the finish into the wood, gives sort of a softer feel. I find that I just rub this on very generously. Again, 3 parts mineral oil, 1 part beeswax. Beeswax is super hard, and so once the oil kind of soaks in and you basically wipe it back off, I feel like it leaves the wax behind with just a little bit of oil, and so I just generously wipe this stuff on. I give that oil a while to soak into the wood. This oil really will not dry. Mineral oil won't do that. So you're definitely rubbing it into the wood, and then you're rubbing off the excess. But once you've done that, you are doing a little bit of buffing, you could say, or polishing to the wax that you've left behind. And I've just found, again, just shortcutting. I put this stuff on, I let it sit for quite a while. I come back and give it a pretty stiff buffing, and then maybe the next day I'll check them again to see if they're still oily to the feel, and if that's the case, I'll just give them another buffing maybe in a day. And it's just a shortcut. I've just found this piece of like a sweatshirt. There's just enough roughness on one side of the fabric that the hook and loop pad on my random orbit sander tends to kind of bite into the wood. Just before I leave this view here, it's just amazing what a little bit of oil will do to that hickory. It just really brings out the grain and the depth and the beauty of that wood. So anyway, here I am with this random orbit sander and just a piece of old sweatshirt, and I tell you, this works like a charm as a buffer. You can just run it over that wood, and it buffs it for you. And time saver, energy saver, and you can see here's the end product of just two very, very quickly made cutting boards. Thanks for watching.